The lesson topic for this video is using a graphing calculator to solve. And this video is for the TI brand of calculators. Alright, so what you see in front of you is a TI brand calculator. It doesn't matter if yours is an 83, an 83 plus, an 84 even. They're all very, very similar with very small differences. So, first of all, I want to mention that this is our main screen here with just where we can do our computation. So if I wanted to do 7 plus 2, which I hope you wouldn't need a calculator for, that's just our computation screen. So if we are going to be graphing to solve an equation, what I want you to see here is you see this is what we're going to try to do here with our calculator. Now I know you can solve this for x when y is 4 on your own, and I know you can solve this, find y when you know x. I know you can do that algebraically by hand. But I'm going to teach you how to do it with a graphing calculator right now so that later with more complex things you will know how to do it. Alright, so first of all you are going to go into y equals right here. So y equals is where we're going to write or put our functions or equations. If you have anything written in here, you're going to want to clear it out and just hit the clear button. And sometimes you even want to go scroll down, especially if you got this a hand-me-down from somebody. Just make sure there's no other equations in any of those spots. Also, make sure that none of these plots, plot 1, plot 2, and plot 3, make sure none of them are dark. They should all be light like they are on my screen. So what we're going to do is we are going to put this equation right here in for y1. So we're going to type in 3x minus 8. Now be careful, there are actually more than one x button. There's more than one x button. So 3, okay? And then the x that we're going to use is this button right here, xt theta n. That's our variable button. So we're going to hit that for x. Notice that if you try to use this green x down here, if you can see that on your calculator, that will not work. Also, x to the -1 and x squared, of course, those are different as well. And this x is a multiplication sign, so don't use that x. It's very important to use the correct x. And then minus 8. At this point, we want to log it into the calculator, so you do want to hit enter down here at the bottom. Some of your calculators might say, or that might be Casio brand, but EXE for execute. But either way, that bottom right-hand button right there. So it's in there. And now we are going to graph it. And again, depending on if this is a calculator that somebody else has used or if you've used it before, or if it's brand new, it depends. When you graph this, it might look differently to you. And let me show you what happens. So if we graph it, all right, so my calculator is in what we call the standard window. So this is probably what you see if your calculator is new out of the package. If it's not what you see, I want to talk about how to get to the standard window. This is an important step that we're going to use a lot. You're going to hit window, which is right here. Nope, I'm sorry, you're not. You're going to hit zoom, the middle button right there, zoom, and you're going to hit 6 for standard. So zoom standard or zoom 6. And you don't have to go down to 6, you can just hit the number 6 and it will do it for you. Either way will work. So it'll regraph for you in a standard window, and there is our line. So what we're going to do is we are going to now, with that line, and again, if we graphed this line using our slope-intercept rules, we would have gone down to -8 on the y-axis, which is right here, and then we would have gone up 3, right 1, and that is this line. So now we're going to find x when y equals 4. Actually, no we're not. First we're going to find y when x equals -3. This is the easier of the two. When we know what x is, we're pretty excited because it's quick. Alright, so here's how you solve for y when you know what x is. And by the way, I will have a list of these steps more laid out for you, either later in this video or in class. Alright, so find y when x equals -3. Well, if you look at this graph right here, when x is -3, that's over here. What's our x value? Well, our x value is down here somewhere. So we know it's going to be less than -10. By the way, when I said standard window earlier, I was talking about a -10 to +10 on our x-axis and a -10 to +10 on our y-axis. So we know that the answer is going to be somewhere down here, probably -13 or so. Here's how we're going to figure out what it is. We're going to use something called trace. It's this button right here. You're going to use this a lot. So if you hit trace, what happens is some stuff comes up on the screen. It tells us right now the cursor's at 0, -8. It's right there. It usually does start at the y-intercept. And it tells us our function up here. Well now if we just type in -3, again -3 from right here, Type in negative. By the way, use this for negative on the graphing calculator. Do not use this. That is a minus. Yes, they do mean the same thing in our brains, but the calculator doesn't know that. So use a negative and then 3. So x equals negative 3 is written right here, and that's what we want, because notice it says right here, x equals negative 3. And we're just going to hit enter. When x is negative 3 on this function, y is negative 17. So we now know that the answer is y equals negative 17. Sorry, that's a really bad 7. All right. So the second type that we're going to do is find x when y equals 4. Now, we can't use trace for this. Again, when we use trace and typed in a number, so if we typed in 4, you'll see that it says x equals 4. X equals 4. But what we want is we want y to be 4. So we cannot use the same process. We can't use trace. So what we do instead is we go back into y equals. Okay? Because let's think about this a second. We know that y equals 4, and we want to find x. So we're going to put a y equals 4 into our second y line. So our y sub 2 line. So we're going to go down. And in the second line, we have to leave 3x minus 8 there. We're going to hit a 4. And again, we're going to log it by hitting enter. So now we have y equals 4 in there. So when we graph this, what happens now, we hit the graph button right up there. What happens is we still have our function, 3x minus 8. And now we have another line right here, a horizontal line, where y equals 4. Remember that a line for y equals 4, y equals just a number, is a horizontal line at 4. So here's the deal. Where these two meet is the x value we need. Because the x value where this line is will be the same x value as where that line is. So it'll meet right there with the same x value. So we need to know that x value. So this next process takes a little bit of getting used to, and I'm going to try to zoom in on my, well, no, I'm not yet. So here's what we have to do. We need to calculate. See that word right there, that little yellow word? It says calc. We need to calculate the intersection of these two lines. Calculate the intersection. So to get that yellow right there, that yellow word, we need to hit second, and then we need to hit the trace button. But we're not tracing, we're using calculate. So it asks us, what do we want to calculate? And the answer is we want to calculate the intersect, or the intersection. So again, we can go down to 5, or we can just hit the number 5, which I find to be easier. All right. Now this is the kind of strange thing about the TI brand. It's going to ask you a series of questions. First question says, is this the first curve? Okay, when it means curve, it means first function. I wish it would say function. Is this the first function right here? Yes, it is. So we just hit enter. Okay, so hit enter saying, yes, it is the first curve. Then your cursor jumped over to here, and it says, is this your second curve? And you're going to hit enter again and say yes. So we're going to hit enter. And then it asks us one more question. It says, do you want me to guess? Well, yes, calculator, I'd like you to guess, please, which is not actually a guess, but an actual answer, so it's strange. So anyways, we are going to hit enter one more time. So really, when it's all said and done, you're hitting enter, enter, enter once you get to that point. So you'll notice when y is 4, which is what we were solving for, right? When y is 4, x is actually also 4. So we can go ahead and write x equals 4. Obviously, they're not always going to be the same. It just happens in this function. Again, if you were to put these two values in for the x and the y and solve for the opposite value, you would get these solutions. If I put 4 in here, I would get 4 for x. If I plug negative 3 in here, 3 times negative 3 is negative 9, minus 8 is negative 17. All right, so let's try one more. This one is in function notation, but it is the same process. All right, so we have f of x equals negative 2x minus 9. Remember, that means y equals, right? F of x is the same as y. So we're going to go back to our y equals. If you still have your equations in there, clear those out. And when you type in negative 2x, make sure you use the negative down here. And then minus 9, make sure you use the minus sign and the 9. Hit enter and graph it. we should still be in the standard window, so we have no problems with that. So we see our function, and we are going to find f of negative 2. Remember, when it says f of negative 2, the x right here has been replaced with a negative 2. So we know x equals negative 2. If it helps, you can actually jot that down. X equals negative 2 is what's going on, and we want to find the corresponding y value. So remember, this is the easier one. When you know x, hit trace, and then type in the value of x, which is negative 2. Notice right here reminds you if you're doing the right way. X equals negative 2 is what we want. Hit enter, and our answer is negative 5. It is that easy, right? Okay. The second one, find x when f of x equals 4. So remember what this means is that, again, y equals 4. Y equals 4. Okay. So we're going to go back into y equals. Again, that's a hint. So when it says y equals something, you're going to go to y equals. So y equals, and we're going to go down to the second line, and we're going to hit 4, enter, graph it, and there's our line at 4, which I think is the same value I might have used on the last example. Oh well. So here's where they intersect, so that is the x value we need to know for our answer. Again, it's pretty quick once you get used to it, but it is second right here, and then calculate. Second, calculate. You get to this menu, you want intersect, which is 5, and all you need to do here is hit enter, enter, enter for your 3 questions. First curve, enter. Second curve, enter. Guess, yep. And our solution for x is negative 6.5. And that is how you solve for x and y using the TI graphing calculator.